only on 2 tonight. A nightmare for a homeless family in need of a place to sleep.
After getting help from New York City, the family says their problems just got worse. CBS 2's Bauman here now with the story. Allie?
Well, Christina Maurice, when the city offered to pay a full year's rent for this family, they said it felt like a dream come true. Even though both parents were working, they still weren't making enough to get by. So the family moved out of the shelter, but say the home they were placed in is so bad, they're better off on the streets.
Anything you flush goes right in the sewage on the floor. They did this, never fixed. These are supposed to be the heaters.
This is where New York City's Department of Homeless Services, or DHS, placed Kevin Nicholson, his wife, and their 2 sons back in June. A house in East Orange, New Jersey, with no heat, no lights, and no running water.
We had to put a bucket and pot here to put the water in from the bottles, try to wash. We had to call people to just come shower.
So cold, the water is ice, and there aren't enough blankets to keep the baby from crying.
I tried sticking it out, putting my own money into the house, but we don't own the house.
Under what's called the Special One-Time Assistance Program, the city will cover 1 year's rent for eligible homeless families. Nicholson says DHS gave him 3 houses in New Jersey to choose from, even though both parents were working in Manhattan and their children are enrolled in Manhattan schools.
You only could turn down 2 places. If you turn down 2 or 3 more, then they would basically say you got to leave the shelter.
When the city put you here, did they say anything about transportation?
No, they don't give you no transportation.
Nicholson says DHS assured him construction would be complete within 3 weeks of moving in.
Anytime we reached out to them, they wouldn't even reply to us. If we call, it was just like, we're gonna see. They sent an inspector out here from New York, and he said in the summertime, because being that it's in the summer, you're not gonna know if you don't have us. We're not gonna know if you have no heat because it's hot outside.
The private landlord has stopped answering his phone, even for us.
This is still our resident. We're still on the lease, so we basically can't go nowhere. Like this is basically our home.
Do you have family around here?
Yeah, I have family, but you know, like, they all have families, like they have kids they own.
In a statement, DHS told us, we will investigate this case to determine whether the landlord neglected their obligations and will continue to work closely with the family.
I just feel like I messed my kid's life up. Like, I owe them so much and more, and I just can't give it to them right now.
The family says after their son was hospitalized for asthma in December, DHS allowed them to temporarily stay in a city shelter. But they aren't eligible to even apply for a different home until their lease is up in June. And what they'll do before and after that, they don't know. Christina Maurice.
Family after family forced by the city to live in hazardous homes, then forgotten. And tonight, after several days of reporting on everything from frozen faucets to no heat, we demanded answers and got an apology from the head of Homeless Services.
I've heard about the story, and what happened in this case was absolutely unacceptable.
Today, CBS2's Lisa Rozner confronted a landlord accused of renting some of those homes. She's here right now. Lisa.
Well, Dana, landlord Sean Young has missed several court appearances in East Orange, sending reps in his place who could not even tell a judge where Young was. So the judge issued a $25,000 bench warrant. Today, Young finally showed up, and let's just say he was not happy to answer our questions.
Mr. Young, you put families in homes with no lights, no running water. Why didn't you fix these homes?
Sean Young, the landlord of now boarded up 57 and 59 Ashland Avenue in East Orange, avoiding our questions. And his lawyer, Calvin Suter, physically preventing us from speaking to him.
How much money has New York City given you, Mr. Young? You can't body rub.
Push me? Well, don't push me.
Young rented dilapidated apartments to at least 2 New York City families participating in the Special One-Time Assistance Program, or SOTA.
No heat and no hot running water. What
get the clown out of here,
Mr. Young. Why didn't you fix the homes?
All he did say is he's moved the people.
And I've moved the people. They're already taken care of.
What do you have to say? Young was in court today for 18 housing violations.
He got rent for a year in advance, and he basically, in my eyes, took advantage of the situation.
Advantage of tenants like Michael Leaks, who Young moved from one home to another that his family still could not live in due to mold. The only bright spot in all this, DHS has gotten in touch with leaks after our reporting, and he's looking at a better home in Newark.
We also want to thank CBS Channel 2 News, and I think that this is going to really put us, where we need to be at an expedited process.
Mice, roaches, broken ceilings, no heat, cracked windows, huge wall holes, floods, broken lights, rotten cabinets, and mold. The 10 plagues faced by many homeless families sent by New York City officials to live in decrepit apartments in New Jersey. Now CBS2 News has discovered that for 10 months, officials knew they were sentencing vulnerable homeless families to live in hellholes and did nothing. Commissioner, I have in my hand a letter from the Legal Aid Society. I asked Homeless Services Commissioner Steve Banks about this January 29, 2018 letter from a group he himself ran for 30 years. It laid out in stomach-turning detail the plight of families in the Special One-Time Assistance Program, and it begged the city to investigate these cases, prevent future inadequate inspections, and ensure additional families are not moved to unsafe apartments. This letter is dated January. You took action in October. That's 10 months. It took you 10 months.
We went through a period of time to promulgate a rule. There's a notice and comment period of time.
While they're waiting for the rule change, the city kept dumping families in bad apartments. Brokers told the families these apartments are like hotcakes.
We're working with law enforcement to hold the responsible parties accountable.
But by sending them to New Jersey, didn't you limit the kind of action you could take against them because you don't have authority in New Jersey?
The program called Special One-Time Assistance is modeled on a program that Ed Koch developed in the 1980s.
But you didn't pay a year's rent in advance.
The proof is in the pudding, in the numbers of families that have relocated and the small number that have returned. One family returns is one family too many, which is the reason why we've taken steps over the past number of months to tighten up the program.
Well, I asked Commissioner Banks about whether the city inspected the apartments and if he had any documents to prove it. He said he could show inspections done after October, but before that, it may just have been on blind faith.
You failed to provide heat at the temperature that was required. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
After being forced to show up on a $50,000 bench warrant, landlord Sean Ridgway of Maryland pleaded guilty in East Orange Housing Court for letting a single mom from Brooklyn live in deplorable conditions, including leaky ceilings, no heat, no working bathroom, and mold. After court,
Mr. Ridgway, can we just ask you a few questions? Why did you let tenants live in these kinds of conditions for so long? Why are you blocking us? Why did it take your clients so long to fix the apartment?
So how is New York City connecting residents with dilapidated apartments? Another SOTA recipient, Andrea Robinson, told us DHS brought her to Iridium Realty Group in East Orange. She says Joe from Iridium placed her and 3 other New Yorkers in this dilapidated building.
What did Joe tell you about the apartment?
Oh, it's beautiful. They're getting renovated. It's lovely, lovely building.
So we went back today with Andrea.
We just want to find out how New York City Homeless Services is working with your brokerage firm to bring residents here.
Please leave my office. You're trespassing.
So,
please leave my office.
What is your involvement with New York City SOTA?
Then he kicked Andrea out too.
That's Joe. That's the guy.
So, Joe, are you taking money from New York City?
More questions than answers, and outside was a van with a New York City parking tag. The driver told us he dropped off another New Yorker from a shelter to look at apartments.
Newark Mayor Ros Baraka speaking to CBS2 today about the families placed in unlivable conditions in his city, a story he heard first on our air. Speaking through our lens directly to Mayor Bill de Blasio, Baraka saying,
well, Mayor de Blasio, this is Mayor Baraka. You know me, we're great friends, and I think that the SOTA program has some serious deficiencies in it.
More families say the city's been moving them to run-down, crumbling homes across the Hudson.
So we took the issue straight to Mayor de Blasio.
These families say that they were in there for months trying to report the conditions to DHS and to the city, but were ignored.
If they were trying to report bad conditions and our agency did not follow up, that's a problem, and people will be held accountable for that.
New York City's Department of Homeless Services faced some tough questions from city council members today. At issue, the program that moved some families out of city shelters to unlivable conditions in New Jersey.
Who's responsible? Why were these homes not properly inspected? I've been following the CBS story to see little children running around in a place that we would not deem to put a human being in.
Who is responsible for
answered
inspecting
that.
the apartment?
City staff and not-for-profit staff.
You swear or affirm to tell the truth, sir?
Yes, I do.
You failed to provide heat at the appropriate temperature, is that correct?
Yes.
A guilty plea to a barrage of violations at his 2 homes in East Orange, where New York City's Department of Homeless Services paid him 1 year's rent up front to house 2 different families. We recently obtained records that show more than 1,000 New Yorkers have been placed in cities in New Jersey, leading the top 4, Newark, with 889, and more than 100 New Yorkers in East Orange, Irvington, and Jersey City.
The final words from the judge today: just do the right thing, and we don't have to see each other. But it's still unclear whether Young and other SOTA landlords will have to see a judge in New York. In East Orange, New Jersey, Lisa Rozner, CBS 2 News.
Developing story following our coverage of the forgotten family. CBS 2 has learned that Newark, New Jersey this afternoon filed a lawsuit in federal court against New York City over its controversial special one-time assistance program, also known as SOTA.
CBS 2's Lisa Rozner just received a copy of the lawsuit and has the latest on this. Lisa.
Well, Maurice and Mary, this lawsuit names New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio and the Department of Homeless Services Commissioner Steve Banks. The lawsuit, which cites some of our reporting, accuses New York City of, quote, irresponsibly coercing unsuspecting families and individuals into moving into uninhabitable buildings with no support network or legal protections. In February, landlord Sean Young ran from us. Around that time, New York City's Commissioner of Homeless Services told us,
I learned about this as a result of your reporting. We're working with law enforcement.
that law enforcement was the Department of Investigation, or DOI, the city's independent watchdog. Today, that agency released a report on SOTA. New York City workers were supposed to inspect the apartments before handing over the money, but DOI found they were
undertrained, not very knowledgeable housing specialists.
One filled out a near-perfect report for a New Jersey apartment without going inside. Another approved this home even though there were 52 open violations.
Some of these forms were falsely filled out by DHS staff.
That's right.
Did the Department of Investigation look at whether this was a widespread problem within the DHS agency?
I will say we have several ongoing investigations into housing specialists and the housing specialist program.
On CBSN New York's show The Point, Marcia Kramer asked DHS Commissioner Steve Banks,
how many of these people at DHS were disciplined, and if so, in what way?
But again, I want to come back, and that isn't actually what the report said.
Was anybody disciplined in this case?
No one has been disciplined. The workers are being held to the standard that we worked on with DOI going forward.
If they're not disciplined, how does that send a message to people who are going to do it that it's okay, it's not okay?
Again, I think you're misreading what the report said. The report talked about what the overall procedures were that didn't require the kind of inspections that we are now requiring.
Controversial program put on hold after months of our reporting that homeless families were sent out of the city to live in rundown conditions. There's a deal to finally make some serious changes.
CBS 2's Lisa Rozner has been one of the reporters demanding answers, and tonight we got action as city leaders from both sides hashed out a deal. She has the story from Newark.
Monday evening, both cities agreed to urgently help the nearly 1,200 working homeless families. NYC will temporarily stop all new SOTA placements in Newark. It will also share all the addresses of current SOTA recipients with Newark, and NYC and Newark will together inspect those units. Wading through sewage.
I literally need rubber boots all the way to my knees.
Victor Mendez is yet another person telling us New York City pressured him to leave a shelter and placed him in this hellhole. Elizabeth Mayor Chris Bolwage only learned of the program when his city was called on to clean up Mendez's mess and others. Now he's considering joining a federal lawsuit filed by Newark Monday against New York City.
Who uses people as human chess pieces to move them around?
Bolwage believes around 50 SOTA recipients have been placed in Elizabeth. Now, the Newark lawsuit even cites a case CBS 2 profiled. It says only after CBS 2 aired the documentary Forgotten Families did a DHS representative reach out. It's not clear how many other people living here in Union County are in the same situation as Mendez. The county's health director just asked New York City for details. We'll see if they hear back. In Elizabeth, New Jersey, Lisa Rozner, CBS 2 News.